Hi there, welcome to your Positive Energy Recharge. I'm Jade Sterling, your women's health coach and nurse. I'm here to help you to balance your hormones, master your emotions, and live a life you love. And today I would like to talk to you about how you can save your marriage without changing a thing. And when I say changing a thing, I mean changing anything on the outside. But we're going to take a different perspective today. Now, I've shared some of my story in previous videos, and I have found that my husband started watching my content because he's hearing from friends and colleagues that my content is helpful and engaging, very informative, and in some cases life-altering. So he thought, I better check this out. And he has seen me in different aspects talking about our relationship and our marriage. And to be honest, I was little bit confronted by that, saying, look, why are you sharing these things? But I really feel that it is important. This is what I said to him too. I feel like it's important to share the hard stuff, to be able to learn from our own experiences, teach it over and over again, makes me a better person, makes me show up in a better way, but then can actually help another person who might be struggling with the same thing. And he agreed, and he does feel that it's a worthwhile thing to do. But it is good to be aware that, hi honey, he's watching this video, if you're watching this video. I'm going to be talking a little bit about our marriage, but I do feel that I'm talking about the same people, but the journey that we went on ended up creating different people, but who are fundamentally the same. I'm still married to the same person. And I did go through a period of what I thought was really difficult. And sometimes we also have family members watching these videos saying, oh my God, I didn't realize you guys were struggling so bad. But when I look back on it, I realize that the struggles are all internal. It was my struggle. Things were changing and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I had to learn to deal with the struggle. And so sometimes people can hear things and think, oh my gosh, I didn't know. But sometimes we don't know either. And it might not even seem like anything drastic or dramatic on the outside, but on the inside, it can be a hurricane. So when I say and I share these things, 3 steps that saved my marriage, it saved me from the pain that I was experiencing from what was happening to me on the inside. I was not in an abusive relationship or a maladaptive relationship, or I was in a relationship where I was safe and I was held and I was taken care of. But on the inside, that's where the pain lay. And that's what I needed to address. And that, I notice, is the main cause of people suffering and the breakdown of marriages, because people feel the pain that they're feeling on the inside and they attribute it to the other person creating the pain. And that is what I want to address today in my 3 steps. Just before I go on to that, wanting to make sure that in past videos I've also talked about the difference between coaching and therapy, or the work that I do in terms of even the counselling and medical treatment and intervention, or intervention from healthcare professionals. You need therapy and medical intervention and healthcare professionals and even legal advice in this case is if your house is on fire, if you are not in a position of safety, if you are in a relationship that is abusive, maladaptive, that doesn't feel safe. You need to establish yourself in a place of safety first and foremost before you implement anything. So you might need to engage healthcare professionals. You might want to start with your GP. You might want to go see a psychologist. You also might want to see a social worker. You also might want to see a mediator. You might also want to go and seek legal advice. Like, there might be things that you need to do to establish yourself in a place of safety. When you are in a place of safety and you're dealing with the ashes that you have left from your house burning down and the crisis is over, that's where coaching comes in, and even some of the counseling that I do. But a lot of the perspective that we take here, particularly with positivity coaching, that is my first and foremost tool that I use to ignite in a positive way your internal pilot light. That is once you're in a place of safety, you feel a little bit more centered, the crisis is over, and you're able to then move forward to deal with the ashes that the crisis has left you. And we can make magic out of the ashes with coaching. And that's why I'm here, to give you a positive energy recharge every single week. Now, we have 3 steps, 3 things that I think is really important to consider when looking at how to save your marriage without changing anything on the outside. And I've actually used these 3 things, though, in many different contexts, not just my marriage. I'm going to share those with you. But as we go, it's really important to keep in mind that you can actually keep these tools to apply in any given situation that you feel that you're struggling in. So the first of these is setting an intention. Now, sometimes I see the shoulders drop and I see the eyes like have a little semi-roll and they're like, oh, we're going to talk about intention again, and getting your mind in the right place and getting your head in the right place. But I think that it can't be emphasized enough. We've actually seen this in medical research. It's actually been proven. It's actually been tested and trialed scientifically. And it can be seen that when the brain sets on a point of intention and concentration, then things happen and things move forward in the outside world, but as a result of what's happening on the inside world. And I can point you to very specific literature about that. You can definitely look up people like Deepak Chopra, like Joe Dispenza, The Secret. There's lots of information out there where you can actually look into the science behind it. But I would like to share with you some of my own personal experiences about how intention is like aligning the stars so that you can easily find your way towards where it is that you're trying to go. And the 3 things that come to mind when I think about intention, my first experience, well, I've had lots of experiences with it, but the first one that I feel like is the biggest for me was when I was weaning my toddler. So my first baby, breastfeeding my first baby, it was a roller coaster ride of adventure, as any new parent can possibly imagine. But at 16 months of age, he was still feeding, getting up every 2 hours at night to breastfeed. And I was struggling because at 16 months of age, they tell you they don't actually need it anymore. They don't need to be fed overnight, like adults don't need to be fed overnight. We can still breastfeed them during the day, but after they're 1, we flip the script and we go from milk being the first and foremost most important food for their growth and development, and food itself is, they sort of say food for fun until you're 1. They don't really say that anymore because food does have a nutritional value, but it's mainly about taste and texture and allergies and intolerances and identifying things early on. But when your baby turns 12 months old, then you flip the script and food becomes the first and foremost primary source of nutrition, and water, hydration, and then breast milk is kind of like your multivitamin or your probiotic or your superfood that you have in addition to the foods that you're having to help keep you healthy and growing. And I am a trained breastfeeding counsellor and educator, and I actually had started training when my first baby was quite young. So I knew all this information, and I knew at 16 months of age that I did have the capacity to take the reins and wean him so he wasn't feeding overnight. So funny about certain things when they get to be toddlers and they demand an ice cream, and it's a no-brainer, right? It's like, no, sorry, you can't have ice cream, because as a parent, I know that the options of giving you ice cream, the detriment of giving you ice cream on a daily basis or even twice in 1 day does not outweigh the benefits of making sure that you have other foods that are better and healthy for you. So ice cream's a no-brainer. When it comes to breast milk and they're demanding breast milk is just a wonderful substance, is it not, of the human body that we can provide to our babies that keeps them alive and hydrated and actually grows a whole human being within 1 year. and beyond. So it's a harder one to be able to say no to. And so I went online to find help because I couldn't find help. Everyone else around me, all the healthcare professionals, and I guess my house really wasn't on fire. I was coping. I was still waking up. I was just feeding. But you get to a point where you're like, enough's enough. Maybe I'm not going to cope soon. Maybe my house will be on fire soon and I'll be in crisis and I won't be able to manage. And those thoughts, as we know from previous videos, do lead us down a path of generating negative emotion that helps to really dial up our nervous system and make us question, and we spiral from there. So in this particular case, I couldn't find anyone around me who wanted to just support me to find a way to wean my baby in a way that wasn't just stop and deal with the crying. Just stop and get on with your life. Just stop and let them cope. Give the baby to your partner to deal with in the middle of the night. Well, my partner was a shift and still is a shift worker. So he was often not home. He was working night shift, or he needed to sleep because he needed to either get up early the next day or he'd gotten home in the middle of the night. So there was lots of reasons why I know I needed to do it and do it on my own. And I went online and I found a doctor who had a forum and a Facebook group that I joined. And this was kind of the beginning of online help and support that just wasn't previously available. And I was the early, I suppose it was 2012, my first baby was born, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And this particular doctor emphasized intention. And he was all about setting your intention and understanding that the benefits of not feeding your baby overnight, to be able to gain some kind of rhythm for them in their appetite, in their sleep, in their behavior overall, and for you, the benefits of feeding them overnight, did they outweigh the benefits of not feeding? Did they outweigh the challenges of choosing to not feed your baby overnight and trying to tank up their daytime tummy and make sure you have lots of skin-to-skin contact so they don't feel during the day that they're missing anything? They get lots of the good hormones that help them feel connected and centered and all is well in the world, to then be able to possibly help you overnight. So he was all about intention. And so this is literally what I did. I wrote out, and it's a declaration. People talk about affirmations. They talk about different ways to inspire your mind and your body and your being to take action. But this is why I find affirmations do not work. They are something that it's like a future. May I be, usually. Bless me with, I hope to, may I feel. There is often something that is future-based that you don't have yet. That comes from a scarcity mindset that is not inspiring, that does not dial down the nervous system to make you feel like you actually have what you need to be able to go forward. It questions your confidence. And if you don't believe it, if your brain literally doesn't believe it, it just won't happen. Again, I've got so many examples of this you can check out in previous videos, why affirmations don't work unless you fully believe them. But I found that instead of using affirmations, we use declarations. A declaration to declare to the world, to yourself, to the universe, to whatever it is that you need to be able to, on the inside and the outside, very powerfully declare what it is that you are going to achieve. So in this particular scenario, I declared that I was capable of understanding and carrying out that the benefits of not feeding my toddler overnight outweighed the challenges of giving him and feeding him. And I can't remember the exact wording, but I wrote it on a piece of paper and I stuck it on my wall. And this particular doctor as well recommended 10 days as a minimum to break a habit and start a new one. So I put my declaration on my wall with 10 boxes underneath. And every morning I would tick off a box knowing that I got through one night. And in this particular scenario, to just wrap it up and make a long story short, I chose not to feed my baby in a certain window. I will not feed my baby between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. And in that window, I'll just find a way anyway to help hold my baby, settle my baby, and hopefully get my baby back to sleep without breastfeeding. And of course, the first 3 nights were very hard because we had had 16 months of a pattern of waking up every 2 hours for a breastfeed. And I would stand there at 3 o'clock in the morning looking at my declaration, and I would say, but I declare that it is possible, that what is possible is what I say is possible. And what I say is possible is that I am capable of being able to deal with and follow through and understand that the benefits of not feeding my baby outweigh the challenges of just giving in and feeding him. And I ticked off my day 1, my day 2, my day 3. When I was ticking off day 3, I remember saying, tonight, if we have the same night that we had over the last 3 nights, I will give up and I'll try a different way, because he did on the 3rd night get back to sleep on me, but not without some crying, which the 2 nights before had been a lot of crying. But I still held him. I still kept him close. I still wanted him to know that I was there. I would talk to him. I would offer him other things that he didn't want. Anyhow, it was the 4th night where I thought, if things don't change tonight, I'm going to have to find another way. It was the 4th night that things changed. He stopped crying and he still woke, but then he went back to sleep. Again in my arms. But there was enough change to give me the confidence to follow through for the next 6 nights and be able to tick my boxes. And within 10 days, I'd weaned him completely at night. He was not feeding at all. But it was the intention that got me through. That's one example. Another example is, and I will make it relevant, of course. Another example is the intention when I started going through perimenopause. Everyone around me was falling apart. And you've heard my story, I'm sure, if you've been watching any of these videos over the time that I've been putting them out there, that my friends were like, you know, your hormones take over from here on in. And it's probably the next 10 years, we're just on a roller coaster ride of adventure and you've got no control and you just have to deal with it. And there's nothing you can do. Your hormones are in the driver's seat now. This was almost around the same time that I was having my internal struggles about what was happening in my relationship. And I made a declaration to myself. It is possible that I could be, what is possible is what I say is possible. That's my favorite. I actually got that from a book that I highly recommend called The Last Word on Power by Tracy Goss. If you're looking to make big changes in your life and create impossible things and actually make them possible, you need to read that book. Particularly if you're a female executive in some industry. But I actually read this book after I got out of industry and I was working for myself, and it made an even bigger impact, I think. But it's made particularly for the corporate world and making the impossible possible. Go read that book. So I was making the declaration, what is possible is only what I say is possible. And what I say is possible is that I declare that I don't have to be a victim and powerless to the process of perimenopause, but that perimenopause is the quest I am on. And I am the hero of this story where perimenopause will be my challenge. And I will get through this quest and I will triumph and I will win treasure and I will find parts of myself that I never knew possible. I can actually make the impossible possible by choosing that I do have control over my hormones in perimenopause. And from that place, I found the confidence to go and find out how I could gain control. And this is what I teach now. This is why I'm here. This is my life's purpose, to help you learn how to balance your hormones, control and master your emotions, and live a life you love. It's all about setting the intention. And then the last example, of course, is about my relationship and how I did that in my relationship. And I decided at one point that things couldn't go on the way that they were, because on the inside, I was having such big, strong, negative emotion that I felt like maybe there was an ignition there of a spot fire. Maybe that spot fire could blow out to one of my rooms, more of my rooms, until my house was on fire, and I might have to go and seek some help. I was not feeling like I was borderline, was I safe on the inside? My emotions were making me actually feel unsafe. It wasn't my relationship making me feel unsafe, but the violence of the emotions that I was feeling on the inside of myself was what was making me feel unsafe. And that's when I realized that this is an important moment to make a declaration. What is possible is only what I say is possible. But what is possible is that I don't have to be a victim again to what I feel is happening in the relationship. Now I'm trying to remember the actual wording of this particular declaration, but I did feel like my husband was holding me back. And the reason why I wasn't doing things that I wanted to do, and the reason why I was doing things that I didn't want to do, was a result of him and his actions. And I really did have a blame and shame cycle going on there. But on the inside, I knew that I was responsible for my own experience. But I was so angry and deep in shame that I couldn't get out of it. And I attributed the reason that I was feeling these emotions was because he was acting in the way that he was acting. He was showing up the way that he was showing up. And if he just changed, or if he didn't do certain things that were making me feel this way, then it wouldn't be that way. Like, things would be different and I wouldn't feel that way. When I was on my own and in my own private space and reading a book, or didn't have a lot of my own private space at that time, or even with the kids, there were times I was really happy. And then I would think of him or a situation that was going on, and I felt really unhappy on the inside. And I thought that it was him. This is really important to understand, because this is the crux. This is the meat and potatoes, or the tofu and potatoes if you're vegetarian like me, of the work that I do. Whatever you're experiencing is happening on the inside because of the thoughts that you are having about the situation. And I had decided that this was a bad situation. It was generating negative emotion in me, and I was feeling bad, and I was not enjoying the circumstances. My behavior was that I was reacting and acting in ways that weren't aligned with my ethics, morals, and values. It weren't me. And that experience was, I considered to be bad, because my thoughts were, this is bad. And then my experience was, this is bad. And it was all bad, right? So when I decided that things needed to change, and I'd learnt these tools, and I knew that I had the power to make the change. And some people choose to leave the marriage or the relationship and work on themselves in isolation, and that is fine. Certainly remember, if your house is on fire and you're in an abusive or maladaptive relationship, please go seek help and establish yourself in a place of safety. But if you're in a place of safety and you feel you need to completely extract yourself and isolate yourself to be able to do the inner work that needs to be done, then that might have to be the path for you. And I've come across so many people who have found that. But then afterwards, they sit in two camps. There's the one who realized that that was the right thing to do because they couldn't do the growing and developing that they needed and still be with that person. But there are other people, and it really is, I see it 50-50. There are other people who extract themselves, isolate themselves, remove themselves from the relationship, i.e. break up, get divorced, separate completely. And they do the personal work and they grow and they learn and they become a better version of themselves. But then they look back and they think, I could have done that and still stayed in that relationship. I could have still done all this work and still been in a relationship with that person. But often that person has moved on and they don't have the opportunity to go back, or they choose to move on because they feel like perhaps it's complete. But there is an element of regret or looking back and just in retrospect wondering whether they could have still done their growth and development and stayed within the relationship. And I decided to make my own declaration that I could do the growth and developing that I needed to do and stay in my relationship. And I can't even tell you where that certainty came from, but I just decided to make that declaration that I was going to be the person that it was possible to not have to break up a family, to not have to change things entirely, because ultimately I knew the work that I needed to do was in here and it really wasn't about my husband. So I decided, the declaration was, I can be in a relationship and still work on myself. And I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to be the victim to that and blame him. I'm going to stay in this partnership and I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to be an agent of my own journey. And so there are two terms you might hear from me from time to time. You're going to be a victim or an agent. Same with perimenopause. Was I going to be the victim? Perimenopause, was I going to be the agent that took flight and used this as a tool to catapult myself into awesomeness? That's what I did. I decided that I didn't have such big goals with my relationship, because sometimes when you're feeling big, violent feelings on the inside, you just want to go gently, gently, softly, softly. But I declared I can stay in this relationship and be safe and still not be the victim to what I think is wrong and bad and not in line with my ethics, morals, and values. But I can be the agent, where I take my own agency to work on myself and see where things fit with me and how I'm going to improve myself and not try and improve the other person in my life. So that is where you start. You decide, you're going to be a victim or an agent. Intention. It's all about intention. They're just 3 examples of my own. That's the first step. The second step, if you want to save yourself and save your marriage and your relationship, is identifying the feelings that you have. And I cannot emphasize this enough. And it is so underestimated and undervalued and underappreciated. And it's something that has such a powerful impact that you seriously don't need to do anything about. All you need to do is identify the feeling. So when a big feeling comes up, you name it. A couple of examples of my own personal experience is, I remember after my first baby was born, feeling this feeling that felt horrible, and I couldn't sleep at night, and I couldn't eat, and I had trouble taking care of him. But my husband was there and was very supportive and would walk me through it, and I was able to keep on an even keel where my house wasn't on fire and I didn't go into complete crisis at that stage. But I remember, again, feeling like this could go either way. I feel like I'm on the edge where I might tip to a point where I might not be okay. And I remember one day being outside, and we had this beautiful backyard with frangipani trees, excuse me, and it was a beautiful day, spring day, and the sun was coming through, and we were lying on the grass, just me and my baby, and it was almost summer actually. He probably would have been about 3 months old. And I had this one moment where I felt my nervous system dialed down. I felt like I exhaled, and I thought, have I been holding my breath for 3 whole months? Oh my goodness. And when I had that moment, I had this feeling in my chest, and then I realized anxiety. What I'm feeling is anxiety. And it was like the pressure had been taken out of the balloon. Suddenly I felt this drop in my belly, my shoulders, my chest got lighter, my head got clearer, and I realized that I have been so anxious. I've had so much anxiety, and just from naming it and going, yes, that's it. I remember getting so excited when my husband got home. I'm like, anxiety. That's what I've been feeling. It's anxiety. And now I know what I need to work on. Like, I just didn't know what was wrong with me. But it was having the moment and the clarity to go inward and identify that was the feeling that I was feeling. And in my relationship, I did so much journaling. I was writing it all down. I was trying to figure out, what's the problem? There's no problem. It could be little things like, he says he's going to be home at this time and he doesn't come home and he doesn't call me. But then he always comes home. And I was trying to rationalize in my brain, what is the problem? But then maybe my mum would ask me, or his mum would ask me, where is he? Why don't you know where he is? And I had this feeling of shame. But it took all this level of journaling and times of actually saying to myself, what's the problem? It's not a big deal. He comes home eventually. So maybe you don't know exactly what happens between these times when you can't get in contact with him, or when you can't. And of course I had other people validating, like, yes, you should know exactly what he's doing, exactly where he is, and exactly what's going on. But it was my feeling that I didn't have the answers to the questions that everybody else had, that I felt shame. And when I realized that, oh, this is shame, and people would say, why? Suddenly is he so unreliable? I had to look back, and I was like, his behavior is always been like this. But my thoughts have never been so strong that it shouldn't be like this. And that was generating shame. And when I realized that, that's so interesting. It's not, I mean, it could be so much worse, right? Go back and look at the video of the positivity model, the power of positivity. It could be so much worse. That should be able to generate so much more positive emotion about the experience, which is part of how I flipped the script. We're going to talk about also step 3. But it was just understanding that I thought this should be better. This should be better. And I was generating negative emotion, dialing up my nervous system, and that emotion was shame. And I was just identifying that again, it's like it took the wind out of the sail of my suffering. I suddenly was at a calm, peaceful sea going, okay, this is shame. This is my shame. It's not his. This is my shame, and what am I going to do about it? Some people think, well, is that actually taking on the responsibility yourself and letting him off the hook? Yes, it actually is. But if what he's doing he's actually physically doing is causing me physical pain, or is of danger to my mental health, or is of danger to my physical health, or is something where my house is on fire, then yes, I'm really going to have to look at that. But in this case, and it's a big deal to some people if their partner doesn't call them to say they're going to be late from whether they're coming home from work, whether they're coming home from drinks with friends, or whatever it is, it's a big deal for people. But I ask you to question yourself, why is that a big deal? And what feeling is that generating? It's usually coming from fear. It's always coming from fear. It's coming from fear that something's not right. It shouldn't be this way. And you could use all your energy to try and change the behavior of the person in your life. But I'm interested to know how many of you have tried that before, and how many of you have been successful permanently. Like, we've had these things, even now with my husband, I'm just like, can you just text me? Can you just let me know that you're going to be late? Can you just say, oh, yeah, absolutely. And it will happen. I'll even send him a message to send me a message. and he'll do that. He'll even set alarms to send me messages. But it doesn't last. And then I'm just left with it should be better than this, where I've realized that, oh, this is just how he is. And how he is not a reflection on me. How I am is what's creating my shame and my pain. And what do I want to do about it? So am I deluding myself to create a better experience? Yes. But that is a better option for me than deluding myself with the thoughts that it's not right, it shouldn't be this way. That's also a form of delusion and creating negative emotion. It's creating an experience that is very painful. These are just things to think about. So when I'd identified that particular feeling for that particular thing, what did I do about it? Step 3, I flipped the gratitude switch. There's another book that I absolutely highly recommend by Kevin Clayson. Please go and look it up. Look him up. He is an incredible individual who is probably one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. And I was lucky to meet him online. I actually haven't met him face to face, but I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with him twice. And each time he's brought me to tears because of the way that he thinks about life, the way that he takes circumstances that are hard and painful and makes them into incredible experiences to learn and grow, be grateful, and then be happy, regardless of what's happening. So again, this is where you don't have to change anything on the outside. You're working from the inside. So I took my emotion, particularly about this one. This is one good example of what was happening in my relationship, the emotion of shame. And I flipped the gratitude switch. Flipping is actually, the flip is an acronym, FLIP. Flip the gratitude switch. And it's a book. That's the title of the book by Kevin. So what we do is we actually look at the situation and we first find anything that can be good about the bad thing. So in this case, the bad thing for me was not always knowing when my husband was going to be home. The unreliability of him saying, yeah, well, if I finish work at 3:30, I'll be home by 4. And then still not hearing from him at 6 o'clock at night. Like, some people would be like, outrageous. And at the time I was like, outrageous, right? Like, that is just ridiculous. But when I looked at that hard thing, and it's trying to get as factual about it as you can, words by my husband, see you at 4, reality that happens, home at 6, what could possibly be good about that? My brain had to find a thought that really believed what possibly could be good about that. Because remember, if your brain doesn't believe you, it doesn't make a difference, and you remain miserable and stuck. But one thing I realized, that he always came home. He never not came home. And my heart really generated gratitude over having that he always came home, even if it was unpredictable. So there I was able to find what could possibly be grateful about that bad, annoying thing. That was my F. The L. Oh, the L is to look for what is awesome. So the bad thing is the F is to find it and identify it. I'm not going to edit these videos because I find that I just end up in a flow, that I love to share my thought processes and how things. This is one of the things that I don't actually script as I share these videos. So let's just backtrack a little bit. F is to find the source of frustration. So in that case, and we try and get as specific as possible, we find the source of frustration was saying you're going to be home at 4 o'clock and not being home till 6. The L is to look for what is awesome about that situation. That's Kevin's words. Look for what is awesome. But for me, it was just finding some little piece of good. I couldn't find anything awesome about being home 2 hours late. And me wondering where he is he okay? Do I have to cook dinner? Like, what's going to happen after that? And all of the thoughts that go around in my head that were then generating negative emotion, because it should be better than this. I couldn't look for what was awesome, but I could look for what possibly could be good about that bad thing. That's my F and that's my L. Find the frustration and then look for what is awesome. Okay, hope I've rectified that. Send me any questions if you need to. And the I is to install gratitude. And that is the intention. That's the intention to make a declaration to make your declaration, I am grateful for whatever it is that you found that could be good about that bad thing. The declaration is, I am truly grateful for the fact that he does come home, even if it's hours later than he says he is. And to be able to believe that declaration and say that declaration over and over again is what changes your brain, changes your nervous system, and completely rewires your heart. That is where the magic happens. And then the P is for power up the gratifuel. So gratifuel is a word that Kevin has made up. That actually, gratifuel, where you're fueled by your gratitude. So basically that means that if you continue to live your affirmation, you live your declaration. Again, affirmation's okay if you fully believe it. I like to call it a declaration. If you can live your declaration over and over again, you're powering yourself up with gratifuel, and then that's how you're going to show up. That's how you're actually going to be in this circumstance. For me, I also like to look at the P to plan. So then what am I going to do? How am I going to show up in this circumstance? In this particular situation, I decided that I could guarantee, I could no longer expect, after we'd probably been together for 15 years at that point, after 15 years of being together, he was not going to message me that he was going to be home late. This particular time in my life was causing me more pain than others, and perhaps 2 hours was more than the previous half hour that it used to be, but I had absolutely zero control over that situation. And so I decided that what I was going to do was have zero expectations of him and just expect the unexpected, to expect that, not expect him to come home when he said he was going to come home. That when he said to me, I'll see you at 4, to tell my brain, you probably won't, and that's okay. To not then go, well, let's see if he can prove it. Or to let's see that he makes sure that he fulfills that. Because I had been making it mean, and this is some more of the thought work that needs to be done, I've been making it mean that he disrespected me. It was something about me. It was something to do with me and my actions and the person that I was and how I was showing up. Because he didn't respect me, that's why he didn't stick to his going to be home at 4 o'clock. Absolutely nothing to do with me and everything to do with him being absent-minded and having the same pattern of never being home on time for the last 15 years. Just now the times were extended because now we had children and we were busy, and he was busy at work, and so he needed a little bit more maybe downtime to debrief, or there could be lots of reasons why he might have needed to go and get something for the car, or needed to go shopping to pick up something for me for dinner, or there might have been some, there's always a reason. And as I said, we're not trying to justify why he's doing what he's doing, because it doesn't even matter. What matters is there could be lots of reasons why he used to come home half an hour late, now it's 2 hours. The actual issue is my reaction to that. And what am I going to do when he says, I'll be home at 4? I just say to my brain, it's okay, Jade, I've got you. Because if he doesn't come home at 4, you'll be fine. Let's plan for him to come home at 6 and make sure there's just dinner. And then if he doesn't come home at 6, and we'll go from there. We'll make another plan. So I still just had to have a little something in my mind that I needed, an action that I needed to work towards, or that I needed to action upon, so that I could still be telling my brain, like, it's okay. I declare that I'm happy that I know he'll come home. When that is, I'm not responsible for that. But going through that process of flip the gratitude switch is what changed everything. So I was able to actually take all sorts of issues that were happening. Even the littlest, most superficial things are the most important sometimes, because the little things build up to a big mountain. Just think about your laundry. If you and then you look at the pile and like, it's insurmountable and I can't deal with it. And I need to extract myself to get myself together before I'm going to deal with that. Where you don't have to do this in this case. If you're able to, every evening for 5 months, I flipped the gratitude switch, and I would take 3 things. This is my invitation to you, to take 3 things that you feel you just can't deal with in your marriage anymore. There could be little things, as I said, and those little things make a big deal. But if you're watching this video, you're looking to save your marriage without changing a thing, You might be in that point where you're thinking like, I don't know if I'm safe or not on the inside. Then we need to look at 3 things that are the hardest, the most difficult, the pain. Find the frustration, find the fear, find the pain in your F. L, look for what could possibly be good about that bad thing. Set your intention and make a declaration of who you're going to be in this circumstance. And then power up the gratitude fuel, live that, be that, and then plan, do that. And if you do that every night, try it for 5 days. That was my trial period. I'm going to try this for 5 days and see how that goes. Within 5 days, I couldn't believe the difference of how I felt on the inside, and nothing had changed on the outside. I did it for 5 months, and I still do it sometimes. I don't need to do it so much because there are other things that I'm working on now that are causing me pain and strife in my life, but I'm applying the same tools. But now I can confidently tell you I have the best marriage I know. It's not perfect. He still comes home late. We still have arguments. We still have disagreements, and we still have differences, and we still sometimes don't align in our ethics, morals, and values. But we can talk about it. We have a different perspective. I have a different perspective in a place that I'm coming to him with now, that I can actually communicate in a completely different way when my nervous system is completely dialed down. My frontal lobe is activated. I can think clearly. I can have a conversation. We can talk about hard things. And so we keep going. And this year we are celebrating 20 years together. And I think that that is such an accomplishment. And I'm so proud of us. But you know what? Ultimately, I'm so proud of me. Because I didn't just give in. And I didn't just give up. And so this has probably been my longest video ever. I really hope that it's been valuable in any way, shape, or form. I want you to make those declarations. I want you to feel the hope that you don't have to change anything out there. You don't have to change your partner. You don't have to change your environment. You don't have to change what's happening around you. You don't have to control people, because you can't. You don't have control over outside circumstances. But what you do have control over is what's happening on the inside. And you can make your life magical by tuning in, doing those 3 steps: intention, naming your emotions, flipping the gratitude switch. Own your path, create your peace. If you want to dive into this, if you need a coach to help you through and be your cheerleader, you'll find more information in the description below. Connect with me. I would love to help you through and help you build a platform where you're then creating rockets to launch yourself into awesomeness. I'll see you in the next video.